Hello, I'm Don Mitchell. Welcome back to Business Basics, the book that helps you as a leader help your company accomplish at least 8,000 times more for your customers and beneficiaries, whether you're a for-profit or a nonprofit organization. Today we'll be continuing to look at part 3, which is how to cut costs. We'll move into lesson 29, which is entitled Eliminate Overhead and Distribution Costs and Select Suppliers with Superior Business Models. As always, let me begin by quoting from the Bible, in this case the book of Matthew, of chapter 13, verses 31 through 32 in the New King James Version. Another parable he put to them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed is the least of all the seeds. But when it is grown, it is greater than the herbs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and nest in its branches. This lesson applies zero-based analysis, something to the minimum core offering to eliminate overhead and distribution costs, something we discussed in the last lesson 28, and to select suppliers with superior business models. Let's begin by considering overhead costs. Here, let me quote from the book of Proverbs, chapter 21, verse 20. There is desirable treasure and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man squanders it. What is an overhead cost? Definitions vary, but most people agree that any cost not directly used to produce or to supply an offering to a customer or beneficiary is an overhead cost. Why begin this lesson about zero-based analysis with eliminating overhead costs? Such costs are not only large, but overhead activities add many other unnecessary costs. Here's an example. A survey of leading assistants to outstanding chief executives officers members showed that following up on casual comments and questions by CEOs often occupied more than 20% of all working hours within a company. A similar effect also occurs among employees who are lower in the chain of command whenever any more senior person in the company, from the chief financial officer down to the lowest level supervisor who has people working under him or her, makes a comment or asks a question. In addition, most people would like to have more people reporting to them. When more people report to a supervisor, most organizations will pay more to the supervising person. Anytime you can add a person to an organization to supervise someone else, empire building is encouraged and unnecessary costs are likely to be added. There's also a lot of self-satisfaction among company leaders who believe that because they are at or near the organization's top, they must be good at what they do, right? Well, not necessarily. Someone who has simply run healthy businesses in good economic times often rises in a company as fast as someone who has done a good job of dealing with difficult challenges. In an organization where there are few problems, promotion mostly follows popularity. As many people describe who is promoted, it's like being back in high school trying to stand out as the coolest guy or gal. A particularly harmful set of behaviors often occurs when company leaders think that they are, well, above average in performance, but they are not. When such a victory of self-confidence over reality occurs, the door is usually closed to cost-cutting, outsourcing, and new strategies. A more useful belief for company leaders is to hold that everyone else knows a lot more than the leader does, but the company's leader can find out what others know by doing the right homework. What's the ultimate in reducing overhead costs? Not having any such costs. You won't find many companies approaching that ideal, but these days it's possible to come a lot closer than it used to be. You might be skeptical that much can be done about reducing overhead costs because you wonder how costs of complying with government regulations can be avoided. Well, in many countries, regulatory costs are inevitable, but you don't have to operate in all countries. In countries with less regulation, you may be able to restructure your operation so that many, if not all, such regulatory costs can be eliminated. Here's an example. You might be thinking about operating in country A. If the cost of regulation is the only reason not to be there, you can approach country A's government with an offer to open an operation so the regulatory costs can be eliminated. While the law may require complying with such regulations, the government may still have the flexibility to grant you tax credits or provide other incentives to offset the regulatory costs to operate there. Companies can also often reduce the the minimum number of employees required to accomplish necessary overhead activities. As an example, you might help the most effective of your key employees to establish businesses that provide such critical activities to your organization. Through contractual arrangements, you could obtain favorable terms and also restrict such businesses from serving your competitors. If you still have employees, you can transition from mostly fixed to variable compensation that's tied to performance that each employee can directly influence. Such a compensation switch might mean production incentives for manufacturing personnel, more emphasis on commissions for salespeople, and bonuses for cost reductions, adding customers and beneficiaries for those who influence these activities. While such ways of eliminating overhead sound fun in the abstract, how practical are they? Nucor, the pioneer producing steel from scrap materials, has been very successful with such methods. Nucor began by looking at customers' minimum requirements. For many applications, steel made by using virgin raw materials had no advantage over steel made with less expensive recycled materials. Naturally, if you can simply melt old steel, it's a lot cheaper than if you give iron ore, coke, trace minerals, lots of liquid oxygen, and huge facilities. Most steel makers pay their employees high wages. Nucor had a different idea. Its employees would receive low wages and a big percentage of the value of any productivity gains they made. This approach meant that even a floor sweeper would earn more than half of his or her pay in the form of productivity bonuses rather than from hourly earnings or monthly wages. Because Nucor was frequently adding new facilities, the company was able to negotiate for tax savings from local and state governments, providing offsets for regulatory and employee cost benefits. Their facilities also don't pollute as much as traditional steel operations. Well, what if you have instead a marketing business? The cost of adding customers can be more than the cost of goods. Today, even marketing has become an area where performance counts. Many media today don't charge by the amount of advertising displayed, but rather by the results gained from the advertising. In essence, more and more media are operating as sales agents who pay only when a sale is made. Offerings that employ less overt marketing are often more successful than those that are traditional methods. Newer marketing methods might include a branded offering sponsoring a contest that many people will support while trying to gain attention for the offering. If you'd like to understand more about this alternative, take a look at Buying In, a book that was published in 2008 by Random House that was written by Rob Walker. You'll be amused to find out how often savvy customers today deliberately pick the lowest price offering that does not advertise. What about the cost of litigation? Eliminate mistakes and you won't have nearly as many lawsuits. Buy the right insurance or self-insure for the mistakes that remain, and you can cut some of the remaining costs. It's almost always cheaper to settle legitimate claims than to contest them. There are also many alternative dispute resolution programs that can save money. If you go to trial, law firms are increasingly willing to work on a contingency basis, tied to the results that are gained through settlement or litigation. What about the corporate headquarters building? If you go to put it on a piece of land that goes way up in value, you'll eventually be able to pay for the building's construction through selling the underlying land. I'm sure you appreciate the point. Aim for zero overhead. After minimizing your core offering, reducing overhead becomes a lot easier to do. You'll be amazed how many overhead costs are required to perform activities that are not needed for your minimum core offering. So what's the key point about eliminating overhead? You can use zero-based analysis to create 2,000% cost reduction solutions for eliminating overhead to help reduce costs by more than 96% or increase social benefits by more than 20 times for all stakeholders where they believe that they will gain the most profit and cash flow and other sorts of benefits. Your assignments are as follows. 1. What aspects of your core offering add unnecessary overhead costs? 2. How could current overhead costs be eliminated without affecting non-employee stakeholders? 3. How could you employ other organizations to help you provide part of your overhead activities at less cost and with greater effectiveness? 4. How can you substitute variable costs tied to performance for fixed overhead costs? 5. How can you turn overhead costs into profit sources that are larger than the overhead costs? And finally, 6. How can you help employees become such effective entrepreneurial thinkers and doers that their added profit contributions more than offset their costs to the organization? So let's now shift and begin to look at how you can eliminate distribution costs. Here let me quote from the book of Acts, chapter 13, verse 49. And the word of the Lord was being spread throughout all the region. And turning our attention to eliminating overhead costs that occur outside of the organization, beginning with distribution. By distribution costs, I mean any costs associated with taking the offering from your enterprise to the ultimate end user. Let's look at two examples to ensure you understand what we're talking about. Let's first consider coffee. If I go to my local Starbucks coffee bar and order a venti, a large mocha coffee, I'll pay around $5 for the privilege before consumption taxes. Of that $5, approximately 10 cents will go to the farmers who grew the coffee beans and provide a key ingredient for my brew. To that coffee grower, $4.90 of the $5 I pay will be seen as a distribution cost. As a second example, let's consider an ebook that I downloaded from the internet. Many such ebooks are now priced around $9.95. If an author has a standard publishing contract, about 25% or $2.49 of that amount will be paid to the author. For the author, $7.46 of the price represents distribution costs. As you can see from both examples, distribution costs to reach end users are often much larger than the price an enterprise or an individual receives for an offering, even if the rest of the distribution chain doesn't do much to improve what the enterprise originally sold. In such circumstances, many organizations will start selling directly to end users. For instance, the author can self-publish a different ebook, eliminating the need to share revenues with a publisher and an online bookseller, selling it on the author's own website for $5, cutting the price to end users by almost half, while we're increasing revenues per offering by more than 100%. While there are some costs to develop and maintain such a website, it doesn't take many sales per month to reduce such costs to quite a small amount per book. If there is no way to sell directly to end users, alternative strategies require creating new, lower-cost distribution channels. For example, most individual books can be printed on demand for about $4 in the United States. Realizing that, some authors formed a company called BookSurge that allowed authors to self-publish and enjoy low costs while selling through online booksellers to gain distribution. The program was so effective that Amazon.com eventually bought BookSurge, merged it with another entity Amazon.com owned, CreateSpace. More efficiencies followed. Today, the self-published author of a book retailing for $19.95 on Amazon.com will receive a royalty payment of about $6.95 per copy through CreateSpace after paying modest setup costs. If the sales are substantial, the royalty is almost all profit. By comparison, a traditional publisher will usually pay a royalty of only about $2 per copy on the same book sale by Amazon.com or at a bricks-and-mortar bookstore. As you can see, you need to understand the economics of how your offering travels through to an end user, what intermediaries do, and how costs are incurred at each stage. And see, you can eliminate layers of distribution, replace the roles played by each remaining layer, and cut the prices that are charged. A brilliant way to accomplish such streamlining is by providing a reason for eliminating layers of distribution that will make good sense to end users. For instance, if an author offers customized books rather than copies of identical books, end users would expect to work directly with the author to make the right customization to gain added benefits, such as having the books autographed. After a minimum number of items are produced, it's often no more costly to produce custom versions than standard ones. Thus, people who hire an author to speak at a conference might like having a custom version of the author's book that contains material not available to those who attend other conferences. If the conference sponsor buys one copy for each listener, there's little more required for the custom version, and inserting some unpublished material the author has previously written as relevant for the purpose. The coffee growers might develop a custom blend of organic coffees that they sell as a branded item through the internet. The growers could purchase a shipping, roasting, and packaging service from others to turn the beans into a product that many end users would prefer. With reduced costs and suitable marketing through online videos, the growers could sell a superior organic coffee blend directly to end users at a price that would be well below what consumers pay now for lower quality coffee purchased in a supermarket. With such lower cost distribution in place, the growers would also operate their own branded coffee bars to serve superior organic offerings featuring their own beans. I believe that such a concept will have large appeal to those who care about organic products and are concerned about the low incomes that most coffee farmers and their workers receive. So what's the key point about eliminating distribution costs? You can use zero-based analysis to create 2,000% cost reduction solutions that eliminate distribution expenses to help you reduce costs by more than 96% or increase social benefits by more than 20 times of what you will be spending for all stakeholders where they believe they will get the most profit and cash flow and other benefits. So your assignments are what aspects of your distribution to the ultimate end user add unnecessary costs. Second, how could distribution costs be eliminated without harming stakeholders? 3, how could you employ other organizations to help you provide part of your offerings distribution at less cost and with greater effectiveness? 4, how can you eliminate most of your customers' and end users' variable distribution costs? And finally, how can you turn distribution costs into profit opportunities? Now let's look at how you might greatly reduce costs by selecting suppliers that have superior business models. Let me begin by quoting from the book of Genesis, chapter 41, verse 33. Now therefore, let Pharaoh select a discerning and wise man and set him over the land of Egypt. This section examines choosing suppliers with superior business models to help you provide the minimum core offering at less expense. Almost every organization has at least some suppliers. Why? Someone else can almost always perform some of the functions you need done more effectively or less expensively than your organization can. Let me give you an example from my Hubline days when I was a corporate planner. Our most profitable product was vodka. Well, we didn't make the grain-neutral spirits that were the main ingredient for our product. That critical ingredient was brought in by rail tank car from Archer Daniels Midland, ADM, a big agricultural processor. All we do is filter the spirits through charcoal to further purify them, and then fill bottles with filtered vodka and distilled water. My boss once asked me if Hubline should start making its own grain-neutral spirits. I analyzed what was involved, concluded we would have to produce and sell 60 times more volume than we needed for our vodka business in order to build a plant that would give us lower cost than we paid to buy this ingredient from ADM. At that volume, the investment would be huge, and the return on investment would be meager, assuming that we could sell all the volume that we didn't need. At the same time and effort would yield far more profits if we instead added a few percentage points more volume in vodka sales. Because ADM had many more customers for processed grain-based products, it could afford to have such a plant and still earn a decent profit on it. The ADM approach constituted a superior business model for producing grain-neutral spirits. One of the most successful ways to reduce costs is by choosing suppliers who have such business model advantages. When that happens, your effectiveness can be higher and your costs lower. Let me give you a different example. One of the oak trees along our driveway died. It was quite a tall tree, over 60 feet high, and it leaned precariously over the electrical power lines that ran into our house. If the tree fell straight towards the house, it could potentially do over $100,000 of damage. In addition, the house would be uninhabitable for months while repairs took place. I decided it was wiser to remove the tree than to hope it would fall away from the house. I found that the electric company wouldn't remove the tree because it didn't threaten any power lines but ours that were going into our house. Also, knowing that tree extractions cost from doing such work with my father as a teenager, I estimated the removal cost from a standard supplier to be about $3,000. I wanted, however, to see how much I could lower the cost without losing any performance I cared about. I remembered that my small business students had taught me they often started new companies by moonlighting on nights and weekends while still working for their employers. Because such new small businesses had low costs, they often charged quite low prices for experienced people providing skilled services. All such students advertised their services online at a site called Craigslist.com. I located the local tree removal companies were listed on that website. There were 10 of them, all of which promised free estimates. I sent 10 emails asking for free estimates. Within a week, I had received 7 estimates. There were 2 primary alternatives for taking down such a tree. The safer way is to use a large crane holding a gondola in which a tree trimmer can stand and move to various places on the tree to tie ropes to make cuts with a chainsaw. The more dangerous way is to climb the tree, cut off small sections one at a time, and carefully lower such sections to the ground using ropes. If the tree breaks while using the latter method, there's a chance of injury for the person working in the tree. The more expert tree removal people felt they could climb the tree and cut it down in that way. They varied in price from $1,000 to $1,200. The less experienced people felt they needed a crane. Since none of them owned a crane, they would have to rent one. Most added the cost of such a rental to the cost of the job and quoted from $1,300 to $1,600. Some of the tree companies focused on business model innovation. They looked to perform several jobs during the same 24 hours, so the cost of the crane would be less for each job. It would take longer to get the job done due to them waiting to accumulate enough jobs. With this approach, it would eliminate most of the cost of renting a crane. Two of the tree companies also asked me about my needs. Did I want to keep the wood to burn in my fireplace? I said no. Since both companies were in the firewood business, they could take the wood, convert it into firewood, earn additional profit. As a result, they could discount the tree removal work for me. Of the two that were in the firewood business, one also wanted to do 4 jobs during one 24-hour crane rental. That company quoted me a price of $600. Naturally, I hired this organization. Their superior business model saved me 80% of the cost of normal tree removal. Let's consider another alternative. I could have kept the wood, aged it, and later split it into firewood. I'm physically able to do all of that work. If I had, I would have required about 3 cords of wood, worth about $1,400 at the time. If I'd hired someone for $1,000 to take the tree down, I could have gotten the tree lowered for free, benefiting from many hours of good exercise, gotten paid $400 for my work compared to buying firewood, and enjoyed many warm fires. Such an alternative is often available when you put together a superior business model from a supplier with your own unique capabilities and needs. The results can cost nothing or even yield a profit. I want to encourage you to look at every activity your organization might do or might have someone else do as a supplier and consider how superior business models on both sides might more than eliminate all costs. You can use the concepts and questions in the Ultimate Competitive Advantage, the 2000% Squared Solution, and Adventures of an Optimist to identify such opportunities. In this analysis, realize you may not find a supplier who already has the business model you need. That's okay. You simply need to help your potential supplier understand what the missing benefits are and to make the necessary improvements in its business model. When you make an arrangement for such changes, be sure to tie up the supplier or suppliers so the advantage is automatically transferred to a competitor who starts working with the same supplier. So what's the key point about selecting suppliers with superior business models? You can use zero-based analysis to create 2,000% cost reduction solutions, to choose suppliers with superior business models that will almost instantly expand your profits after implementation by only supplying the minimum core offering while helping you reduce costs by more than 96% or increase social benefits by more than 20% in ways that you'll be spending for all shareholders where they believe they will gain the most profit, cash flow, and other kinds of important benefits. Your assignments are 4. First, what aspects of your potential business model add unnecessary operating or supplier costs? Second, how could you eliminate such costs without harming stakeholders? Third, how could you employ other organizations to help you provide part of your supplier cost reduction activities at less expense and with greater effectiveness? And fourth, how can you turn suppliers into a profit source rather than being stakeholders that only add costs? So thank you for your attention to this intriguing and interesting concept. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion and that it will empower you to eliminate many distribution, overhead, and supplier costs. So in the meantime, may God bless you, your family, and all you do. In the name of Jesus, talk to you soon.